So you're still in upstate New York?
Yes, sir.
Oh God, don't call me sir. I just turned 62 in December.
Oh, I would say it if you were 22, if that makes you feel any better.
Don't lie.
For
Um,
real.
yeah, so I mean, it's going to take a well, no, they're already coming in. We've been suppressed a lot, so it takes like 3 minutes for people to. No, it's coming in fast.
Oh, nice.
All right, we got 21 friends in the house. We got
Nice.
beautiful sister Danielle Wilk, who does some amazing work. We're going to talk about that. We've probably done about 10 shows together over the years, and she's really tapped into something, and we're going to explore that in real
Uh-oh.
time. Danielle Wilk, welcome back to Soul Speaks 5D. Thanks for coming in and sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence from New York, upstate New York. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I want to say is that there are probably, I don't know, like say in the last maybe couple of years, there's probably a dozen sisters that, I kind of interacted with like you. And, I tried to help and support, because I could see that, because I know what it's like to come out and start talking on the camera and nobody's there with you, right? And so, yeah, it's been a real pleasure to see some of them keep going, quite a few of them actually. And I think yours is really kind of like a template. So this is 206,000 views in that time, 113 videos. So you're talking about like, really like one a week.
Well,
I'm sure in the beginning you didn't do too many, but you know what I mean?
I actually have a lot more content that I have
Really?
unlisted right now.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because well, part of that, I'll tell you really quick why. Some of it I'm re-releasing, but part of it was where I was really going through a transformation of my own voice.
Oh,
So as I was evolving, it was like I kinda had to I didn't erase it, so I wasn't, like, denying it, but I kinda had to let go of that version of me so I could evolve with the channel for a little bit, but so I've, settled in now. But that was actually it's kind of like it was weird. I put that on the back burner, but then I also, like, uncloaked another part of myself, and that's when
uh-huh.
it started growing.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
We're gonna have to learn about that. I mean, so what happened with your voice? What did you notice, and what was that all? How did that all go? How did that transform?
So it's interesting, it was twofold, and it was actually right probably around the last time me and you talked. I pulled back a little bit. I was still doing videos, but I knew that well, you met me right when I was going through, like, a big transformation. So
Right.
it was like that 3.5 years, I was really in a transitional state. And then, last summer, it hit this pocket where it's gonna sound funny, but I wasn't even resonating with my own old like, the content. Some of it I was, because
Yeah.
some of it was new, but some of it I was still delivering from what I used to know how to do,
Right.
and so I took a step back and I was like, "I'm ready to integrate everything I've been learning at a deeper level," so I pulled back for a while and was a lot more quiet, and it I think, like, that first year of my channel, I was getting used to doing videos and being out there every day, and also, um, really, I think, exploring for myself what this masculine, feminine journey meant for me internally and externally. Where did I land? What did I believe? What felt rang true for me? And so I was on this exploration, and then around that time, I'd say actually this fall, I really just started owning my inner union.
Okay.
And that part of it, regardless of everything I was learning from the external mirrors, I just really stepped into that part of myself. And that was the shift of my voice. It was like it felt much more integrated within my internal energies.
Yeah. See, that's even weirder. What happened to your work? I mean, can you pinpoint it? Did it take
Well,
on a yeah,
I can. It was really like everything was quiet for me in every direction, but I was like, I've grown so much and I have so much to share. why am I here? What am I doing? You know what I mean? It was like, what's the point of me going through all of this to not to just sit here alone, right? So I was praying on it, and one day in the shower, I got a download to do 22 days of Inner Union series, and I was like, "Seriously?" I was like, "Okay," and I just committed to it, and it started December 1st, and it was really a journey for me, you know, because I only had, like, 100 something subscribers at that time, and
This was in December?
yeah,
You had 500
yeah,
and now you have 3,700.
yeah.
Wow. Wow.
So I just honestly, it was a journey for me. It like I said to you, it was like owning
Yeah.
my internal union. Because yes, I do know I feel pretty tapped into at least part of the masculine and feminine collective, a part that I'm connected to, and, but it felt like I felt really comfortable owning the inner union part of it, you know, so I just grounded into that, and about halfway through it, it kinda just really opened up. But each video, I was going through a series of going deeper into myself because you'll laugh, but my own videos activate me. You
I'm
know,
not
they make
that
me work.
doesn't make me laugh.
They make me work, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, yeah, the whole process, it was then that really started to open up, and um, it's just the process of I mean, I know going with, like, the roller coaster and the ups and downs of the process and the
yeah.
learning.
How did you know that that was your calling? Or that's where you know, I mean, because that's pretty unique. I mean, to see a single you see couples doing it, but to see a single person, and I've seen a few, really to be as tapped in as you are. How did
It's interesting, but I was really on that journey. It started for me knowingly around 2004.
wow.
Internally, like, it was before anybody was talking about it. I found a book in the bookstore called Twin Souls, and it just honestly, at that time, it was definitely that drive of like, "Oh my gosh, I want a partnership like that." Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I was super new to all of this, like, I wasn't even doing this work at that time at all. I was working with kids, but over the years, I just something about that working with my internal energies resonated, I think because of how I grew up, and even though obviously I'm a feminine, I very much had to grow up a lot in my masculine energies to survive, so I could relate to that part of it, and something about the journey of just understanding or looking at both sides, um, spoke to me, and it was like a fluctuation of looking at my relationships that I had in my life as those mirrors, and so and just bringing it back to myself, I guess, and then it got amplified for sure when I had the experience with the masculine, like, 4 years ago,
Yeah,
and that took everything I was doing, like, it was almost like prep, and then that blew it wide open for me. And what's interesting is that, believe it or not, the masculine and feminine stuff is what I'm guided to talk about, but it's really only honestly a portion of what I do.
really.
But it's been what I've been guided because sometimes I actually literally had a friend I had this conversation, I'm like, "Sometimes I feel like, should I be talking about more of the topics that I'm able to talk about, like, on a more, just neutral platform, but I keep being guided back to the masculine and feminine because the people who've been activated within that are
Right,
so ready to go."
right.
And
Um,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I picked up on that looking at your stuff. Yeah, like big time. So, I mean, and let me ask you this too. A lot of what I've seen you doing, you're pulling cards as you do it, and I referred to
mhm,
that earlier, which I
yeah,
find pretty incredible. Now, I've seen a lot of that. We've all seen a lot of people using, different tools, including tarot and whatever. But you is that how you do this? I mean, you're actually, is that part of the way you do it? Because I
it's
know,
real
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry. It's weird, but I actually there's also a lot of videos I don't use the cards.
okay.
In most of my sessions, I don't use the cards.
Right.
I've actually just used them as a tool
Yeah, of course.
when I wanna just totally be coming from a open, neutral space, and the cards don't usually speak to me about the same thing. It's like whatever pops in that
Right.
moment,
Right.
and usually it's things I'm already thinking about and that are swirling around. I kinda look at it like if we're tapped into spiritual Google, right?
Right.
The quantum, the subconscious of the collective, and then I just use those tools, those pictures or those words to help me focus the messages I've already been receiving.
Yeah. Are you experiencing these things that you're writing about and you're connected to within yourself? Like, is your masculine and feminine, do they have a discourse, a dialogue?
Yes. Yes. I would say it happens in multiple ways, I guess. I have it internally where I see my own actions or my own ways of just being. Then I also look at my relationships being reflected around me. So sometimes even when I'm working with other females, their inner masculine, we're working on that. So I'll even see that when I'm working with masculines as well. There will be similar patterns, even though it's different sexes. So um, I see it in that way. And then, yes, and the energies, I still, that masculine still works with me. Yep.
Mm.
So,
You know, Morgan started a Yoniverse group, with some of the session work she's been doing the last couple of
oh,
years.
nice.
And, obviously it's all women. And then during this period, like going back 2 to 3 weeks, um, it became, like, what about a men's group? And so we did the first two last week. Um, and it was pretty interesting. And I've been feeling this, like I was talking to you about. There's something, and maybe you can speak to this because you have men that are clients, but there's something deep, deep in, I guess you would say, the persona or the transformation, or I don't really know how to explain it. The bottom of the barrel, the almost like the surrender, the submission of this old masculine, and things that were at the bottom of the barrel. I had no idea. Like, and so I
Mhm.
listened to, after these sessions that she runs, there's a talk, and she left, so it could be all men, which was really interesting. And I won't talk about it because it's private, but just in a general way, I think that there's a journey that he went through that she didn't know about, that the world didn't know about,
Mhm.
and it really hurt to be the soldier, to be the art, in the military guy, what I
Mm.
mean, to it, even to be associated with that. It really hurt to not be able to be in an arena, and I've been there, and um, utilize that softness of the feminine.
Mhm.
I mean, in other words, there was some real beatings that took place, and then of course at the bottom of it is, the sexual distortion, which
Mhm.
was pretty which was a big topic with these chats afterwards. So I don't know. I'm just curious if you don't have to get personal or anything like that, but like, are you seeing that depth in your clients, like this? Like these things are dark in the deep corner of the closet, and like, I
Mm.
mean, it's just like it's almost like
Yes.
it almost kills you.
Yes. I actually, well, you already know how deeply I'm connected to and have compassion for the masculine,
Mm.
but I did have a session where through the session and I was able to experience it even deeper from his perspective and felt it It's actually kinda interesting, but it's connected back to some of the topics we talked to last year with the masculine's connection to the earth, and in the session, I actually got tears and cried because I felt in the masculine system where they've, like, absorbed the pain of the things that have happened on Earth as a way of, like, wanting to protect everyone,
Right.
and then they kind of absorbed it into their body, but as a protective for everyone, but then they started to believe it was them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, "That is deep," and, like, I know that's why I always say in my videos, like, especially I do have a lot of feminines on the channel, like, the masculines are going through their process, and it's not going to look like ours, and there's
Right.
a whole different level of things that are happening.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I talk a lot about how the collectives are working in tandem, even if it doesn't look like they're working together. It's like sometimes working on the opposite. And just like you said, like the masculine might be holding space for the feminine to advance. And then she gets to a certain point, and then it's her job to hold space for the
Right.
masculine to go to the next space. And then it just kind of keeps going, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet that's been an eye opener, having a lot of sessions one on one with men.
Mhm. It's it's been helpful, to deepen my understanding, and there as much as I can tap into my own inner masculine and relate to it, there are just some parts that unless I'm learning it from a masculine, I'm not gonna know, you know? It's kind of like how you have your own shadow self and you don't know what you don't know till you know it, you know?
Right.
But it's
Right.
definitely broadening my understanding, which I'm grateful for because then I can support that within other masculines, but also in hopefully helping the feminines understand the masculine
Yeah.
in a different way.
Yeah. What you're talking about now, I believe is happening. I believe
Mhm.
they are starting to see each other, um, and and that's a powerful proposition.
Yes. And like we've talked about, I know you and I talked about it a while ago, how in reality, I know that I talk about the inner masculine and feminine, but really like you said, you found that hole in your heart and it was really just you for whatever those core soul wounds or whatever happened or whatever we chose at a soul level or humanity, however it came about, that we just got split from our own energy and, went on this journey, all together. And now it's like, as we're bringing the aspects of our own self home, it becomes much easier to have compassion for the other side. Everybody has to do their own stuff. No one can do it for you. That
True.
actually, I wanted to say that when you were talking about the masculine, wanting to protect and realizing they couldn't. I've had some thoughts and some experiences with that personally, but also, yes, looking at the masculine collective. It's like at some point we made these oaths to like save or to support. And the interesting part about those is like we made them when we didn't have the awareness that it was nothing we could ever possibly achieve because we can't do someone else's stuff for them.
Yeah.
So that burden got really, really heavy really fast.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, this is obviously kind of freeing me up, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's part of what we do.
Yeah. 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 Do you ever do like like little groups,
Yes.
things like that? Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. I actually just did one this week.
Mm.
It's like that was a New Earth entrepreneur group where I kind of am helping a group that are getting started.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then a couple weeks ago, I did one that was more of like a meditative energy,
Mm.
restoring sacred masculine and feminine essences.
Mm.
So I'm kind of just right now, going based on what I'm seeing my people are looking for and what I'm able to provide, and just learning as we go.
I bet that's a massive energetic rush, positive, to
Yeah,
go from 500 in January to whatever
December, yeah.
December to 3,700. That's a lot of. Was that a challenge?
Well, that's where I told you I think I was ready for it, and that's
Mm,
why it happened. Like, maybe before that, I might not have been ready, but at that point, I was. But I did actively, um it took a couple weeks for me to calibrate and kinda get a rhythm, of connecting with so many new people in a way that I just wanted to make sure that I was still doing my
right,
high quality of work.
right, yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, but it got into a pretty quick rhythm considering, and I'm just kinda trying things out, like I said, with the groups, and there's
yeah.
been definitely a positive connection with the people that resonate with me, you know? I
Right,
know I'm not for everybody, but for the
right,
people that wanna do or are doing deep work,
yeah.
they seem to connect with it.
In the podcast world, which is like 95% men,
Yeah.
um, with a unconscious, in my opinion, an unconscious uh, patriarchal subtlety that um, doesn't encourage, support, allow, recognize the feminine energy.
Mm.
Yeah,
Well, I think having best of both worlds is where it's at.
I think so too.
Yeah. It's so
Right?
much more powerful.
Yeah. So, what
Yeah.
other stuff you were referring to? You mentioned this entrepreneur group. What other things are you getting into?
Well, yeah, I mean, I've been an entrepreneur since, like, 2006, and I've done a bunch of different things, but approaching it definitely from, like, the new energy, right? So that you're more so coming from your heart. Like, my marketing strategy is to be available out on platforms where people can find me, and then being authentic, and then trusting the people who can benefit from me find me.
Right.
That's my marketing strategy, in a sense. So it's just how we're evolving. And the more I sat with it when I was talking about it, it's like it's actually for someone. I used to be like a workaholic, so, and I did lead a lot from my masculine.
Right.
And then I would also do parts for my feminine, but it feels different now, like where I'm really honing in with both, like in that inner dance. So, um, I don't even know where I was just going with that, but I think just supporting people
Yeah.
who are in these energies, there's actually quite a few of them that are, have been activated, but they're alone, and they're like, "What do I do with all this energy? How do I harness it? How do I grow it?" So,
Really?
doing it,
Is
yeah,
that
doing
men? Is that men too?
yeah, there's a few.
So, what does that look like? Uh, no names, but I'm like, what does that look like? A guy? Does he get Kundalini activated, or is it like what does that look like for them?
I guess I am not entirely sure in that sense. I guess from what I'm seeing, it's like where that you get open to yourself, where you realize the things that you want,
Right.
right? You have that activation of like, oh wow, you experience what your potential could be, and then what your potential in a partnership could be. And then when it's gone, you're left there like, what just happened? But it pushes, and it's in a sense devastating
Yeah.
because you think you screwed up.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it's really there to show you what your potential is. And now, how can you bridge the gap between where you are to where you really want to be? And, it's a process
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, I believe it. I think that's the interesting part is so much of it is mirrored, but the masculines held it in and were tough about it, and the feminines expressed it emotionally in many cases, and so it looked one-sided,
Yeah.
but it definitely doesn't mean it necessarily was. I
No.
have noticed that and learned that the last few years. No, and what I've seen, like, this isn't observation or a thought I've had. Actually, you can give me some feedback back if I'm in the right direction. I feel like when I look at it from an energetic standpoint, where the masculines were violated was when they were pointed away from their heart into only more of the distorted sexual energies as being what it means to be a masculine and having to be in those energies even though that's not fully who they are. There to some degree, it's a part of them, but not all of who they are, I don't believe.
So don't bullshit yourself, guys. There's some very deep, subtle things here that um, it takes the innocence, the power of the innocence of the child to actually step out of, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And I'm ready because I'm tired as fuck.
I feel you on that. I think it's good. Overall, that collective energy that's coming through does feel like that baton is shifted so that the masculines, or at least this wave, can go through their process,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's what's been coming through that I've been seeing. I think it's kind of an important point to check in with ourselves and, like, what feels in alignment with where we are now, and then, for me at least, that's when it didn't leave, but definitely it shifted. The way I related to what I was doing shifted, so it shifted the community.
This part of me um, is being asked in with the greatest reverence for the multidimensionality in service as the, let's just say, as a masculine, exemplifying that part or whatever, uh, is being asked to just bear the naked truth. You know, just absolutely transparent. Be transparent. And I'm like, what's that? I'm like, fuck ass
Well,
naked.
it's why that makes sense. It's like you have to figure it out for yourself first, right?
Yeah,
And I don't know, up until the last few years, I don't know that we had the space to do that. We're just now starting to get this space. I know I took the last few years to do that with myself,
yeah,
you know? So it makes sense to me that it's starting to happen for the masculines, like I said, based on what I was seeing,
yeah,
because you guys were holding space for us while we looked at ours.
yeah. I'm with you. I feel like that. It's spring, um, and yeah, it just fits now. Like what you said about doing all that work over the years, it's all being given back to us now, um, at a pace that's, I don't know. I'm kind of getting used to it now. I don't know about you.
Yes. It's kind of amazing how much muscle we've built and how much more capacity we're holding.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome, actually.
Have you noticed like a increase in the presence and, let's just say, the attributes of the third energy within your own experience, like where things happen? We used to say, "Oh, that's a coincidence," and "Oh, that's synchronicity," but like things are happening almost like every
Yeah.
step of the way. You're like, "Oh, thank you," and then you see, "Oh, I took this action and it brought this. I thought it was going to bring that, but I got this."
Yes.
Things, just weird things like that.
Yes, it seems like our actual co-creative abilities are much clearer.
Yeah, yeah,
So, yes, I know, yep, I have had moments. It's not 100% of the time, but there definitely seems to be more pockets of it, um, where a couple of years ago, I was just in the weeds.
yeah. What I do know is nothing's going to happen until it's supposed to happen.
Mhm.
Nothing's going to push any buttons. And I'm saying this for, as a person, as you, as like the way I see this energy working. You can't force anything. You can't. And if you try to make a choice or an action based on a program, or a
Mhm.
program response, even, it gets shot down. The third energy works both ways.
Yeah. That's kind of I'm with you, and that's kinda some of the conversation in that New Earth entrepreneur kinda group, right? So,
Mm.
just like you're saying, so it's a whole different energy leading it versus what we knew, and one of the main things that I told them in the group, no matter what you're building, make sure that it takes you and the other areas of your life into consideration,
Yeah.
right? So that it's actually sustainable in something, that's why sometimes I just try things because I wanna make sure it's something I can sustainably provide, or maybe it's just a one and done,
Right.
and I suggest, like, I was like, "Let's just try different things." Then you find what you actually like to do and
Mhm.
that you're good at, and start there,
Yeah.
because that feels so important that if we get to build it our way, then we should enjoy every minute of it,
I
or most
believe
of it,
it. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Somebody said throwing spaghetti on the wall. Yeah. Well,
My grandfather used to do that, that's hilarious.
did he really? I
Yes,
thought that was just a
to make us
saying.
laugh. No, he used to
Oh, I got
literally do
you. Yeah, yeah.
it just to make us laugh, to.
I remember my brother got pissed off at a Thanksgiving one time. He was about 19 or 20 and took a handful of potato salad and threw it against the wall. Tantrum. Um, yeah, what you were just talking about. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, do you have any groups coming up or anything you want to tell people about?
Well, I did a part 2 of that New Earth Entrepreneur because I do have people, in different time zones. So the next one's on the 23rd, if anybody's interested in that. It's a Saturday at 2. I have my one-on-ones. I think I'll be doing some more groups that are more, like I said, in the energy type of realm. When I do those, we go into, like, the dissolving, like, my one-on-ones and my groups are a lot about kind of unraveling or dissolving the old programming
Hmm.
and bringing in more of the aspects or the true soul energy in whatever way that plays out. I have actually, a core wound one I did free on my channel if anybody wanted to check that out, but,
Is everything pretty much found at your website?
yeah, yeah. And, well, I don't explain everything I do out just because it's a lot, but I
Yeah.
do have the sessions, and you can kinda see the categories under
Yeah,
those.
I was out here earlier actually.
Oh,
Let me go
nice.
back to so yeah, and it's well done, by the way.
I did it myself.
Did you really?
Yes.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I used to could do stuff like that. I don't know why I can't do anything like that anymore. I can't do anything that's like old masculine. I don't know what it is. Yeah, intuitive coaching, energy work, reading, soul retrieval sessions, intuitive massage. How does that work?
Well, I am a licensed massage therapist,
Okay.
and I added that back in actually a few months ago because the people I have locally, I found people were really needing, like, the craniosacral.
Okay.
Like, I kinda do a combo of, like, acupressure and just supporting the body being able to receive their energy.
But you're doing that through distance too, right?
Well, not the massage. I mean, I
Oh,
guess, yes,
okay.
energetically, I can to a degree, but yes.
Okay. I thought it was like distance Reiki or whether remote Reiki or
I
something.
have a office too, but
Oh, cool.
yes,
Very cool.
so I do both. I have people local and then around the globe.
Wow. And these testimonials, I was looking at them earlier. There's pretty strong testimonials in here, which is speaks to it speaks to what you're doing. Right
Well, I
on.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
I was gonna say my motto this past couple of years has become space and grace because we're all going through major
Yeah.
transformation, you
Exactly.
know?
Yeah.
So it's like we're in the middle of it and we don't necessarily know exactly where we're gonna land, but we're working towards those intentions. How we get there is a whole
Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
um, experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like those, what were those things called? Those when you're a kid and they had like a gray thing and you would draw with the pen and it would make all the black and then
Yes,
you'd lift it and it would clear it.
yes,
You know what I'm talking about?
yes. Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's like that too. Like
Yeah.
there's an element of that too involved
Mhm.
because man, the self judgment thing is
Yes.
huge, right? Like that's just it. That's all there is to it. So I think what you're talking about with the trying things it's okay, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
all right because we're in the no judgment zone now. No judgment of self. Like,
Yes.
but that applies too, like win, lose, or draw. Like you have a big
Yes.
success. Wow, look what I did. I went viral. You know what? Forget about that too. Because the thing, what is it called?
Yes.
You
No,
just
yes, the detachment and just getting in the present moment. Oh, Etch a Sketch.
etch a sketch. Yeah. It's a
Yes.
mental sketch. Yes. So just remember every day
Somebody
is a
wrote it in
mental.
the comments.
Enjoyed it. It was very therapeutic for me. I hope I didn't talk your ear off.
No, it was awesome, I appreciate it.
And
It was good
yeah,
to see you again.
it's good to see you. You guys, that's over at Harmonious Hearts. Hang on, let me get the proper URL and let's see, harmonioushearts.life. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the website, yep.
copy, and then I'll stick it in the on the different platforms since I can do that here. Boom. So that's where you can find her, Danielle Wilk. Hopefully, we'll get to see you again soon, and all blessings to you and yours and all your endeavors, and keep on going. And thank you for the inspiration, the motivation, and acknowledgement from the masculine perspective. And I'm sure the feminine feel the same.
Yes. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me,
Okay.
and have a good weekend.
You take care.
Alright. Sarah, the one who, coordinated this, so to speak, she sent me popcorn and ice cream ready. She's, like, all excited.
Who's that?
Sarah Jane, the one who was watching your video
Oh,
my video and sent me the
yeah,
message.
Sarah Jane. She's very cool. Yeah, very cool lady. Hola, amigos. We got Danielle Wilkes in the house over this period of time since the first of the year. Okay, can you talk about that? Because I'm sure that was
So,
brutal. I'm sure
it
that was
was
brutal.
actually
Yeah.
it's actually a really interesting experience. So December and January, my business was super quiet. Like everything got quiet. And when that happens, I know something more is happening. And I told you I have that masculine that I work with in the energetic field. Um, and like there was really nothing going on in anyway, but for myself, I knew something had to move. It had to shift regardless. If we were not going to connect in the physical world, I knew that I had to move forward for myself energetically on all the levels. And so I was just praying for guidance with that. And within days after that, actually, I think you and Morgan had been posting, she posted something about finding an implant in the sacral. And it was literally around the time I had found one in mine. And then I was finding a bunch in my body. And I messaged her about that too. And she had had similar experiences. And like maybe at once I processed that for myself through a series of things, that masculine's energy kept coming in and kept coming in, and I was actually trying to ignore it for a little bit.
Wait a minute. Well, just so everybody knows, because this isn't talked about a lot. So I mean,
Okay.
but just please keep going. But what does that
Okay.
mean? Does that mean like you get ready, you go to bed, and you're just laying there, and all of a sudden, or does it happen all the time, and or what is it? Is
Mhm.
it
Well, I pretty much feel his energy every day. Um, but sometimes like his higher self or different versions will come. It's always different. So I just
wow?
it's always different, so it depends. I kind of have to just adjust with where the connection is at and where I'm at.
Wow!
Um, this was actually, ironically, we're not connected in the physical world, but through other means, um, pictures connected with him were being posted and shown on my news feed. Even in, it was like the universe was doing it, right? So there was ways that it was getting my attention that I needed to pay attention to him, even though we don't talk in the physical world right now. Um, and it'll get loud like that until I address what I need to address. And it's not that I'm not open to it. It's actually more of me wanting to respect him because he's in a relationship with another woman, even though we clearly have this soul connection. Um,
Wow!
so that's a lot to navigate because it's never shut down for me because of my abilities. Once we connected, um, I could never shut it down. Um,
Wow!
I've had to honor that contract even through separation in this way. So that was a lot to deal with. But um, that's about to make me cry, Todd, and I've been
Oh,
good with this.
okay. Hey, you're with family. This is it's all right. What take your
I
time.
know. Well,
Take your
I think it's just well, I could get into those cliches when people talk about the twin flame stuff. It's not in the cliche twin flame things that you see all over the place. That's why probably my channel doesn't have a million subscribers, even though I talk about that, because I'm talking about the real live uh
hey that
full soul exchange, and now you got to run that initiation in order to move forward.
yeah that session 10. I think that was out. I don't know a few 18 hours ago. Uh, it's pretty. It's the best one. I think it's to me. And I have to listen to them because I put them on the live after we do them, and I don't really re-listen to anything I'm doing. But that one was good because it's kind of. But anyway, at the end, the whole evolution of it ends up in this space, this kind of space, and she's talking about that, and
Yeah.
and her voice changes. She's going on with that, that priestess kind of thing, the voice that she
Mhm.
has when she's channeling, and then she goes, and I remember how she prefaced it, but she goes, and it's hard work, and
Mhm.
so I think people look at that and they go, oh, you mean like typical, stereotypical things, Mars and Venus things. I, yeah, it's hard.
Sorry.
No, no, no. We're with you here. It's all right. It's all right.
No,
Yeah, but it is hard. It is hard.
it's
Um,
hard because the part is that in order to fully you can't walk away, you can't block it. People have said to me, "Well, you have free will." And I said, "Yeah, I have free will, but if I shut that down, if I shut my truth down, that means I shut me down. And that's not what I came here for." So, I had to face it because that's the commitment I made to myself and to the planet.
yeah, and I know a lot of people in, let me just say, situations where they're having the same experience and they're not physically together, and some of them don't even have bodies. And I know they're real because I know these people just like I know you. And thank you for sharing with us. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. I can't
Okay.
even believe it. I think honestly, it's almost like a relief in a way. Like,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm good. It definitely, I think it's
No.
like you do it in silence and it's so much deeper than you can even explain to someone, you know? And then some people think that you're nuts, that you're making it up, and why can't you just let go? And it's like, don't you think I would if it was like that? Like, I legit had to walk the initiation, but it's made me so strong and taught me so much. I really wouldn't not do it, to be honest.
Yeah. Man. There's so much power in transparency, and I really feel like that's what we're doing, without force. Just this is what I value. Like we were talking about the whole platform before we came on,
Hmm.
and and I showed you that thing that we showed everyone yesterday. But that's, I guess, everything I said to you. That's where I'm at with it. You know what I mean? Let's do
Yeah.
this, right? Because
Yep.
I mean that just witnessing that, is it opens your heart.
Now I think I can remember to answer back to your question. um,
Um,
so yeah, it's something that, like I said, I couldn't avoid. But the energy would come in, and then I would know I would have to work with it. And after I cleared those implants out of my system, um, it was like I was guided to literally. work with him like as if he was my own legit divine masculine energy. Um,
Wow.
so I was actually, when you said I was anchored, it actually after I saw it like a whole bunch of needles in the core that were numbing. And after that cleared, it was like a couple days later, I was like pulled right into his body. And that was how I had all those experiences. That's how I knew what it felt like. It was like, um, but also, this part is interesting. After that process, I was actually, I told you my business, everything was really quiet. And I kept feeling like, where am I supposed to go? Not that I'm not good on my own, but it felt, I kept getting that energy like there's no place for me to land. Right. And that's when all of this started happening. Like, even if he's not here in the physical, I still had to follow through with what energy was meant to happen for the planet. So, one morning I woke up and I'm like, this is a void. I was like, I have nothing going on in my life. I'm just going to go back to sleep, which I never do. And I woke up, and a couple hours later, um, I was like sitting in meditation, and I was literally like energetically drawn to his property. And all this energy started flowing through me. And I was like, oh my God, like I felt like I landed on the earth again myself. And then, what was it like? 2 hours later, I got 4 phone calls for clients, and everything started picking back up from then. And it wasn't that I wasn't available, but I had to still be on mission and do what I had to do in order to be able to do what I do.
Man, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And God, and and it it just it's such like a well, it's just a real time, present day, in your face. I mean, I'm observing this and feeling this, and all this new energy as you're telling the story. And even before that, even when you got emotional, I started getting information like what you're looking at is what you're looking at looks like a physical woman speaking to you, but it's not. There's an energy behind it. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on behind it, and this is what's coming into our lives. And it makes me like reflect and go, maybe that's what it is. Maybe there's more coming in, and we're seeing how big we are, and even in terms of our aspects that work together. I think the
Hmm.
humans obviously are the last ones to find out, which is
Yeah.
both a bit tough in our life, but it's the greatest gold there is.
Hmm.
So, like when that happened to you, I don't know how this even works, but do you feel like that when you merged with him, and you say when you said you were
Hmm.
in his body, and I can totally relate to that, uh, and you got all that information and you saw the whole thing, and then everything went into alignment. Do you think that happened for him too? Even though it's
Well,
not linear, it doesn't happen to have to happen at the same second, but you know what I mean?
well, I can say this. There was the following weeks, I experienced another form that felt similar to when we had the original Helios Gamos, but obviously we're in no contact. But there was a similar energy, but instead of from the front, it was like we were connecting from the back. Um, and actually, there were some physical world signs. Um,
Mm.
I kept feeling, yeah, there was things that happened. Um, I was feeling his energy in the physical a lot. And there was like even though we don't follow each other, he like blocked me on something and I felt it energetically. Even though he didn't follow me, he was clearly looking at things and blocked.
Yeah.
So I know, and my phone rang with his number one time, which hadn't happened in like but it was just a quick hang up. There was things like that. So like to me, that was my confirmation that he was definitely feeling something.
I don't see how you couldn't. One of the things that as I began to learn about uh, whatever you want to call these sacred unions, obviously with Morgan, and she'd say, it all starts with the feminine. The feminine fully steps into her power, no matter what is happening, and in each cycle, you know.
Mhm.
And if you look at the overall thing that we're going through, this transition called ascension, it's really the same thing. She
Yeah.
steps into her power, everything gets altered, which means he then is able to find his power or his divine divinity as she has, and then the golden child and all that. But so, I mean, I can't see how, and you know, I always remember this comment that Sandra Walters, we went to lunch with her in Sedona a few years ago, and she said, "It's just going to get louder and louder, and if you don't pay attention, your higher self is going to embarrass you, embarrass the hell out of you, you know." And
Mhm.
so I don't, you know, again, not to take things so literal, but I don't see how as an energetic force that couldn't be felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't, that's why I said I just don't know if it's completing out or
Hmm.
um, what. But I guess that was the thing. I couldn't stay stuck. Like Morgan said, I had to step into my power. Um, I feel like these years, these last couple years, well, I was living all over. I was jumping timelines like it was my job. And then just this past year of settling and being able to settle into myself a bit more. Um, it was a lot to process because that experience also um, activates all of the places in you where you're not able to house yourself and love yourself and share that love with another. So that was a lot to realize and process for me because I had a real traumatic childhood and he had almost an identical one. So we brought up a lot in each other's system. And even me, with a lot of the experience that I had prior to it, it was very intense for me. And it was something totally new for him. So I've really just tried to hold compassion for that as much
Yeah.
as I can, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just be grateful that, it helped me evolve.
Um, Burn. I was just thinking of Robert Evans the other night, Monday, when we were making music, and I finished doing a little piece, and then he said, "Burn, let it burn," and I was like, he went into a rap, but no, this is very serious what you're talking about. Not a lot of people have talked about this, and I have a feeling that a lot of this occurred, a lot of the transformation and the burn occurred the last 6 months of last year.
Mhm.
I saw it everywhere. It was, and we haven't discussed it, you know, publicly. She's always said there'll be a time when people start talking about it, but you know, I've always felt like this was a summary of life, and this is that was a summary. That was a
Mhm.
summary. You know, like stretch run before you get spit out of the birth canal, because it does feel different this year, but we're still got, you know, we still have. Well, I guess you have to stay open no matter what, and
Mhm.
that's really truly being fully trinified. I guess is to be open to any things, any and all things. You can always put up a prayer, and you can always say, "This is my preference." I do that all the time, especially
Mhm.
when things get heated. You know, in whatever capacity these
Mhm.
last few years, be it money or not having a home or whatever. But yeah, you got to stay open.
Yeah.
Mm.
One thing that did come into my mind just to share, actually, with all this topic, that I think that one of the biggest things I've learned over these couple of years is with the grounding into our body, even if we are grounded already, we're embodying so many more aspects of ourself and so much more energy and essence of who we are that I found that I've had to open and expand my connection with the earth. It's almost like every time I'm pulling something in, at first I was like looking into the earth energy and I'm like, how come it looks like cement down there energetically? And it started hitting. It's like, oh, this is showing you, this is parts of you that have never been grounded on the planet. So it's like a whole new experience of, these energies that we're pulling into our body. So the grounding piece and making space for ourself to kind of really plant ourself into the earth. I do it almost daily.
Yeah, I've um, like I said, my relationship with Mother Earth
Mhm.
has changed, um, but you know, like in that session last night again, all this stuff. I can't remember when anything happens, but then it just comes in when it's supposed to.
Right.
We started out in front of this portal. As soon as we walked in the portal, we're looking at each other, and she goes, "I'm looking at you," and you like 30 or 40 times turned man, woman, man, woman, man, woman. So the whole symbology, I guess, was really what's happening. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's what I was going to ask you was like, I mean, what you've shared already is just like it doesn't leave out any of the human, and it doesn't leave out any of the soul. But that's all coming from this reunion of the masculine and feminine. So I know your kind of recent process or experience. Where do you feel like you are with masculinity and femininity? What I mean by that is like, I'm not saying you're walking on water. None of us are. I get that, but do you feel? How do you feel towards men now? Like, I would imagine, and I wasn't a woman, but I would imagine with everything I've picked up these last few years, I can understand why there would be a natural bias or prejudice against men from women, even if they weren't conscious of it. But has it changed for you?
It's actually been really layered that there's different pieces and perspectives for that. Like, I always was cool with men anyway. I think in a lot of ways I was actually really protective of men.
Mm.
And then going into this, I guess where I really saw that there was a lot I didn't understand about how men process that I've learned. Um, that it really literally is different. So that was huge in a way of like, that's one, but then also understanding that what their experience is spiritually or soul wise is not going to look like the feminines.
Mm-hmm.
Not that all of ours are exactly the same, but we do, as a feminine collective, have certain ways that we operate or similarities that we can connect on. And it's just different, obviously, for the masculines,
Mm-hmm.
completely. And I still don't fully, obviously, know what that's like in all ways, but I do try to stay open as much as possible to support that because I think more of these things are happening for masculines, and um, them having a safe space to go to get that support is important. On the other hand, this I think is actually a really beautiful thing too. I've realized in some ways where I had to really back off and not try to fix or rescue for masculines, but to back up and let them um, figure it out for themselves. So,
Implode. Implode.
well, it's all different. And I'm not just talking about this connection, I'm talking about with family, friends. It's like, you know, I practically raised my little brother, so I shifted my relationship with him has changed too. So it's kind of I'm learning how to navigate my own boundaries, my own healthy boundaries, but also no matter what they're choosing, respecting their sovereignty and making those choices.
Yeah.
Right? So um yeah, I this part came to me. I thought you're right. They just pop in when they're supposed to come in.
Right.
Years ago, remember when, do you remember when I think it was right before
Convid.
that um, volcano erupted in Hawaii?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I just remember significant connection to that because at the time I got messages that it was connected to the feminine and the earth being frustrated of being like raped and taken for granted and abused. And like not long after that, like the Me Too movement started. And but there was something within the messages I was getting and then those earthquakes that hit. I got the message that that was the masculine essence in the planet rising, like opening up. And I don't know. I felt to share that for whatever
Yeah.
reason, but
No,
it does feel like a
yeah.
big collective.
Yeah, when you said that too, I ran into something in the last 2 days, and it made such an impression. I shared with Morgan, but I don't know what it was. But I do know that it was something that was, I think, planetary, or like we're about to have those 5 planets line up. Something
Mhm.
like that was going on, and I read it, and the reason it caught my attention is because it was like whatever the information that comment whatever they were writing about was like almost like a setup before.
Convid.
It was like some major thing. Maybe it even lasted a couple of months, and that it's kind of occurring in the same way now.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I was like, oh wow. But yeah, that whole thing with you know obviously Morgan has kind of got multiple purposes, right? As we all do. And one of those was the coding and information, here, sacred union related, sacred sexuality, heroes kamas, and all that.
Hmm.
And so, we've been together over 7 years, and there's been a lot of masculine, feminine uh, discourse, and both as male, female, and as channels that we all are. But I never really, I always believed everything. That's a fact because you know what you know, and if it's that type of connection like you're experiencing and other people are, you just know. You don't have a choice, right? But as far as like feeling stuff in my body, real change, not little pin, pricks and but real shit like this year. Like I could feel it energetically creating it end of last year, um, but I could feel the power of it this year, and
Nice.
it's been building in my body's like like the main hub or the command center or something. Yeah.
That's funny because I did a message on my channel earlier today, and I wonder if I was connecting with you. It was like I was seeing the energy. It was almost like in the body and the DNA. It was reminding me of those old like dynamite sticks or that you would see on the old cartoons where
Mm-hmm.
they light it and it goes down the wire.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I was shown it was like all internal, like all of these synapses and changes and shifts. We know this, but I never saw it quite like that. Like where all this change is happening internally and we don't really see it externally yet. And then it's almost like gonna kind of really, it felt like it was just gonna kind of explode out at some point collectively, but it didn't, it felt like a good explosion. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll have an exchange with someone and I can't even tell you what they said. 10 minutes later, you know, I can
Yeah,
just feel everything. It's become much more than the words.
I get it.
Yeah, and that's
I
that's
definitely get it. I find it with my own things that I say or my experiences. There's so much that's happening now. Like I used to be the type of person that could remember what happened 10 years ago. Now sometimes I can't remember what happened 10 minutes ago because we're just doing so much. It's like in a way though we're also learning to surrender and not be attached and trust that whatever needs to come through is going to come through. So,
yeah. What's the
Just
name of
got
your What's the name of your website? Into
my website is
hang on.
harmoniouslife.
Lights. Oh, that's
Hearts.life.
right. Oh,
I
hearts. Yeah, I
switched
remember
it
that.
up a little bit.
Dot life.
I used to have a .com, but I was guided to go to a .life.
That'll work. And boom.
Mhm.
All right. Tell us what's going on here. Let's see. Harmony. You got sessions, book sessions, intuitive coaching, twin flames, relationships, tarot, which you do a lot of. You utilize the tarot like really in a way that I can actually sit and watch. Most of the time, when people do that, I can't. In the way you present it, you
You
do.
know what's funny? I don't even really use much tarot in my sessions.
You don't.
Um, no, it was just really guided for the channel and the bigger
Yeah.
collective messages. Not that I won't use them
Yeah.
if you know messages want come in that way, but when I do one on one, we just get more deeper into the person.
Right on. Yeah, that's what I
Mhm.
was referring to. I was referring
Yeah, yeah,
to your videos.
yep,
Very
yeah.
cool. Very cool. Very
Hmm.
cool. Yeah.
So,
Nice. Nice. So let's see. Yeah, harmonious hearts dot life.
mhm.
Danielle Wilk.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for always coming on and for being so real. Danielle, thank you so much, and
Thank
I look
you.
forward
I
to doing it
appreciate it.
again. Yeah, I look forward to doing it again, and I look forward to collaborating in the early days of this platform with you and those like you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hmm.
You guys are doing awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
We're all doing awesome.
Yes, definitely.
Take care.
It's kind of one of those days. I had my contacts in and my eyes were killing me. So I got the weird lighting. Sorry about that, but the
Oh
lighting
no,
in my apartment is not good.
no, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I think it has been a weird couple days. Are we getting to a point where the residual of the experiences and the incarnations and the roles and all that uh, is starting to be out of context?
Yeah, it feels like there's like a huge shift going with it. I actually just had a conversation with a friend this morning. It's like you explore those dynamics to a point, and then it's almost like not that there's not relevance to it,
Right.
but if we keep expanding and growing, um, is it relevant anymore? It is and it isn't. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does because it's actually great wisdom. I
Right.
think what you're.
Sometimes I guess what I find with myself is there's not really a right or a wrong way. Even the things that we were programmed with, right? It doesn't mean that some of it doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, right? To a degree. What I think is, for me, what it comes down to is the programming, right? Around it. So if we check in with something and we release the programming and let the programming go, and it still resonates with us truly in our heart and soul,
Right.
then it's really in alignment, right? So I've kind of gone on this exploration with things, especially over the last couple of years, of really checking in with Danielle around what's truly in alignment with me, right? Like, and I take out the parts that don't work, and I'm okay with letting myself bring back the pieces that do work for me being a human being on this planet right now. So like I'm okay carrying a purse cuz that's functional and it works for me, right? um kind of things. So it's like, but yeah, I find the biggest thing that I'm sitting with is really, yeah, is this thing that I was told is what I should do, does it actually support me as a being? And if it does, I'm okay with that. But yeah, it just really comes down to, I think, us each individually checking in with what feels right to us truly, not
Yeah.
what we were told to do or not do. I think for me, well, actually, I know for me how I feel is I want to be my full creator being, right? Which I guess when we look at the creative essences that we have on our planet, right? Masculine and feminine, it takes a woman and a man to create a child.
Yeah.
So that's why I speak in those terms, right? But those essences are within me when I'm thinking about creating like a business creation, right? It takes my masculine and feminine energies internally to bring that to fruition in the physical form. And so I want to be able to do those types of things. I want to be able to create the life that I want and not be limited by a role as a just a feminine or just a woman, right? I want to be a full creator being, but I also want to be a woman, right?
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's like I want to just be able to be all of who I am and not limited in the old ideas where a woman has certain roles and a man has certain roles and we're like pigeonholed into those. Now I honor and respect that there's those roles, but if I'm good or you're good at other things, why not be able to be all of that, right?
Hmm.
And then, still be in my feminine energy as a woman, because ultimately that's it. I just don't want to be limited by those old roles anymore.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to for me.
It's alignment, and that's not something that's being encouraged by those that have been, you know, distorting things.
Right. It's interesting. I've been thinking a lot about how, like, as a soul, like, we're born and we just know, like, if you think about a little kid, right? They just experience their emotions, they move through it. It's not a big deal. They can be mad at you, throw a temper tantrum, and 3 minutes later, they're ready to play and they love you.
Hmm.
And they just feel that full expression of who they are. Nothing is suppressed in their system, at least, maybe underlying, but at that point, they're still being just who they are. And then as we're taught to suppress who we are, suppress our emotions, suppress what we think, suppress what we feel, suppress who we are, it creates all those inversions, right, within our systems. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion comes from, because if we were just allowed to be who we were from the beginning, emotionally or expressively, and that was encouraged, I think we wouldn't have so much confusion. Um, we would be able to just be who we were without it needing to be right or wrong and labeled in any of those ways. But I mean, yes, be respectful of everyone around you, but at the same time, like, if you're just experiencing emotions and you're not hurting anyone, well, what's wrong with that? I don't
Exactly.
know.
Whatever that may be, you got to own it. We've all got to come
Right.
to work with our lunch belt.
I think an important piece of that is like, regardless of what we've experienced or done or been through in our life, like honoring ourselves through that process and letting it unravel without shame or feeling bad around it, because we did the best that we could with what we were taught or what we were programmed. And so, like, having grace for ourselves as we unravel out of that, I found for me that was huge for me, learning to be more comfortable in who I was. It was hard for a long time. Um, but once I just started to realize that I didn't have to hold shame if I was actually willing to learn from it, right? Like, if you're willing to learn from whatever you've experienced and grow from it, like, well, that's what the human experience is for. And so, really, like, be proud of yourself for that, regardless of what it was or what you did in the past. It's like, who are you today, and what direction are you heading in?
Even if no one gave us props, we got to give ourselves props. I think that's what you're saying.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah. I found, while me and you were talking about how I'm pretty just out there on my channel with myself, because I feel like, I don't know, at least for me, there was a time where I was super shy, like crazy shy, and I didn't have confidence in myself because of so many things I experienced. And through like my process, I've realized it's so freeing to just be okay with all of those parts of yourself, Like, and I do that so that other people realize that they don't have to be ashamed of not being perfect or having it all figured out, because each day we're waking up and each moment we're just figuring out what's next, especially now that we're creating something totally new. At least in
Hmm.
my perspective, I'm here to create something new, not the old loops.
No, I think
you
you're
know?
absolutely right.
Yeah. With what you just said about like getting those initial downloads and then just kind of seeing where things go, that's actually why I was switching the Facebook around, and I'm actually even just kind of revamping my Harmonious Heart logo and business, because I've just grown so much since I created it. I was willing to let the whole thing go. Like a couple weeks ago, I was like, I just had to let it all go energetically, and I was willing to walk away completely if that was what was going to be in my greatest good. But then it was like, it was so interesting to experience that because it came back around, but I was guided to actually go back to my original vision where at the time I just didn't have the supports to bring it to life. But now, as I've created those supports internally in me, I quickly manifested the support I needed to bring it to fruition. So it's kind of cool. It felt like almost like the old version was synonymous with the distortion I was still living in. And now that I've like extracted myself out of it, I could bring it back to life
Right.
without the distortion. So that's what I mean by sometimes, like, if we can let go of what it was so it can become what it is now, it doesn't mean we're necessarily throwing everything out.
Mm.
It just means letting it evolve, which feels really good to me. I've actually learned to enjoy that process because you don't really know what's going to come, but it just feels good to refresh it.
Yeah. These things come in. Yeah, they're going faster. It feels better. The momentum feels right, but I still get split. And it could
Oh,
be
yeah.
for 2 minutes, 20 minutes, 2 hours, whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I feel like these last couple weeks, I know we always say this, right? These last couple years have just been constant ramping up, but it's like, holy goodness. Like, I just been, even my schedule with clients and everything's been really quiet. And when that happens, I
Mm.
know I'm being called to go through a big shift and there's something new coming. And it's just been like you're saying, things are coming up in my system. But instead of looking at it like there's something wrong, or I'm just looking at it like the opportunity to expand and move through whatever's coming up. Um, and so since I've kind of dropped into that way of viewing it more and more, it's intense, but I've kind of wondered, like, is it more intense and is it ramping up because we've prepared ourselves to be able to work at these levels, and we're just like transmuting and moving energy so quickly. um Sometimes we can't see what's coming because we're moving it so fast.
I know. Yeah. So do you like tap in every day, like on an individual basis, or do you? A lot of people I
Yeah,
know just through the day, throughout the day of their, but some
yeah,
people
it
still,
pretty much just happens. It's
yeah,
been a big part of the energy. I think that is why I'm alone and quiet so much.
yeah,
That's why I said I felt like I knew when it gets quiet like that, I know there's big things happening. It's just getting called into the energetic fields. And um, yeah, actually, I messaged Morgan yesterday because I had a dream that I called her and we were on the phone the night before, and I couldn't remember any of it, but I just messaged her about what I had been experiencing, and we kind of validated for one another that it was similar. Um, so yeah, there's definitely I agree with you in that kind of like we're done with the old ways. Like, definitely concur with that. So what I kind of feel with that, in my experience in my field, is once it was like almost like before it was like, oh, you just got to hold space to allow everything to have its own experience, right? And then it was almost like the green light came to where it was like, no, you don't have to agree to any more of the shenanigans and the abuse and the drama. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to align with it or agree with it. And in fact, almost each one of us that chooses not to participate in that actually is holding the space for the bigger collective for those to collapse. If that's what I've kind of been shown.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who's very surrendered to the higher, higher guidance. And I really check in with things before I,
Right.
go full blast into things. And so I was happy to hear that message.
That's a good message.
It feels like that pocket where you said it's like the bifurcation. I think we're just expanding and shifting um, at such big levels. It's almost like that I've been saying exponential potential. It's almost like we reach a point where we just have to let it go and let it do what it's going to do because we can't even, our human self can't even see all the potentials or how what we're doing, the effect that it's actually having.
Yeah. It's a powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah. Integrity has been a huge word for me, or a point, like when I am checking in with what feels in alignment with me or in integrity with me. Um, and a big point is that I've realized is that's all I really need to know. It's not about what anyone else chooses,
Right.
right? It's like, where am I going to align and put my energy and my focus? That's my that's my integrity. That's what I'm choosing to use my life force for. In these last couple years, I've become very, very aware and responsible for what I put my energy and essence into, because realizing how much and how many places I was actually giving my power and my life force away to
Yeah.
in retrospect is literally astounding to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, no, I'm not self betraying anymore for anybody. I found it does go back to that self love thing, right? Because I found I'm having boundaries for myself, but all the things were just mirroring to me the parts where I didn't love myself. And as I'm shoring those up, my energetic boundaries are kind of just taking care of all of that for me. And to your point, like we're all going through a transformation. So one of the messages that came through the other day was to just let go of the version you held of that person in your mind and allow them to rise up to who they actually are, because hold the same grace for them that we're learning to hold for ourselves, because
Right.
we're all going through a lot.
Yeah.
And like to hold a person or a gender or a collective in a spot or in pigeonholing them into a certain role or a certain category, or they do this or they do that, really is only limiting ourself at the end of the day, because
Yeah.
then we're just creating more of that limitation. But if we just learn to have grace with ourselves and love ourselves, then we can automatically start to hold that space for others. And I feel like that key piece right there,
Hmm.
that's how you change planets
Well,
from war to love.
yeah, and I think that's a great. That's first of all, it's a great exercise.
Hmm.
You know, that's coming online,
Yeah.
which is why we got to go mainstream and get everybody to work out there.
Right? Definitely. I a couple thoughts came to my mind when you were talking, but I don't know. That one that part where, like, you I think it's, for me, this, like, the last year was really about boundaries for myself, but it was just because I had in the past a tendency to, like, way overgive and put myself on the back burner. And through learning how to work with my energies, it's like learning that self-love and love for the other person. And so as I process those things, what I found is, like, let's say there's something happening that I don't like or that feels disrespectful to me. um I'll let the person or the place or the thing know, and I'll set that energetic boundary for myself, but then I let it go right then and there. It's almost like energetically, I drop it into my energetic field and then just allow the person or the place or thing to choose what they want to do with it.
Mm.
But what I'm finding is like you said, it's not that they're bad or whatever. They were just showing me where I still wasn't loving that part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So once I do, either they meet me in that new loving state, or they end up leaving my space, but not because I kicked them out.
Right. And again, it's nothing's, I mean, it doesn't mean the circles won't collide again,
Right,
or come
exactly.
together again. And
Exactly.
so obviously that's the heart connection. We were more grounded, lower chakra. So this is going to be, one of those things where you pull the rubber band really far back, but it's going to go really far the other way, right?
Mhm.
And so,
I like that. You know, it's funny because for me, actually growing up, it was my mother, the feminine in my life, who was the one who you know, wouldn't let me actually set healthy boundaries for myself energetically. I guess she was that part of my training. So for me, it was kind of not a masculine or feminine thing. It was just a human thing. But I um I agree with you. I've kind of looked at it from like the broader perspective in terms of the masculines and feminines working together. And like you're saying, in a sense, if the feminines were like leading the charge, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without the mirror of the masculines holding down the fort,
oh yeah,
and kind of showing us. I guess that's how I've operated within it, how I've looked at it, instead of like that blame game, like I was just saying with everybody else. If they're showing me where I'm not loving myself,
right,
it's not, it was just simply that for me.
right,
Anyway, I mean, showing me, okay, I felt like the energies were working in tandem, actually. That's actually how I've worked my energetic connection with my masculine. Um, Not just me, but like a masculine soul connection that I have. It was showing me exactly that, where to shore up so that I could become the
right,
woman that I want to be. And was some of it, like technically from the human perspective, hurtful and all of those things? Yeah, it was. But again, that was showing me where I wasn't loving myself.
right.
But it's also that, in part, that connection with that masculine is why I've had so much exponential growth these last 2 years.
Right.
And if I would have just only looked at it from the old lens, I would have missed the opportunity for the growth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so with you, I agree with you in the sense, because I feel like now, as more of the feminines are stabilizing in the new and more able to process and hold that space, exactly like you said, now the masculines collectively can go through their process. And yeah, I don't know, I feel like that was the teamwork.
Oh yeah. What I've experienced with women coming on this show the last 2 or 3 years, when they step out, which is just more like, hey, here I am.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think what you said earlier, it's just important for each of us as humans to be able to find out who we actually are. Man, woman, doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, like the programming um for the masculines was really intense, really intense. Like you said, it was really like a lot of the programming was shut down your heart, deny your heart. You know what I mean? Like that's intense to that's a big inversion from the truth of who a man is.
Yeah.
So, I
And
don't
then,
know.
and then,
I'm
I mean,
happy to
and
hold
then
space for that.
oh, I'm sorry. I feel like we're about to step into this, and as we saw a lot of women stepping up the last couple of years, I can look at the show as a microcosm. Certainly, the
Mhm.
last year and a half, I think we're going to start to see men stepping forward too, and I think we're going to hear some pretty wild stuff, and I think that's
Yeah,
a good thing.
right. Definitely. Absolutely. I'm here for that. For sure.
Zach,
I uh I think actually, even for me, like as a woman, um this last couple of years when everything happened, it really for me was about going in and healing my lower chakras in
yeah,
a lot of a deeper way. Like that's where even within the collective, there is a lot of the programming and the old trauma and the old patterns. And as we're just sitting here right now, it's like, well, did the feminines pop out of those to hold the space so we could see the differences? Because if in my younger life, I was definitely just operating from my lower chakras, without a doubt. Like that's how I survived. That's how I operated in my teens and my 20s. And then I started to get on this journey. And of course, I wanted to just get up in the higher chakras. I didn't want to deal with all that stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe in allowing ourselves to do that, we were able to see some of the other side
Yeah.
and like get into those new ways of being. But then, like I said, for me, I had to go back into those lower chakras and reground and embody my true self into those areas.
Right.
And I maybe that's why I speak so much about my own masculine and feminine energy, because why that experience helped me understand some of what the masculines have gone through. I mean, I'm not a man, so I can't sit here and say I know what it's like for you, but I feel like it gave me some perspective on that I did not have before,
Yeah.
in appreciation for what masculines have gone through and are like working through.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
So there's
Mm.
something almost like something was shown to us, and then a trigger goes off, and that programming, that distorted programming is then activated by virtue,
Can I tell
almost
you
like
that's not just
malware.
masculines?
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
But yeah, I mean, I remember similar things, you know, and if we're not taught what it is or to understand it, like you said, you kind of just go into whatever's in front of you in a way.
So many women, and I'm sure men too, but so many women have reported, and it's certainly true, when they would go to their guardians and say something happened that doesn't feel right, or oh, don't talk about it, don't talk about it. So there was just this constant, it's a bad
Mhm.
thing, whether it was something that you became a victim in, or something where you were in love, and whatever. It's just all.
Right. And it's kind of interesting if you think about it, because our sexual energy is our creation energy, is our life force.
Right.
It's like the foundation of who we are. But like you said, we were taught to look at it as distorted. It kind of goes back to when I said about the emotions. It's like we were taught all of these things that are just naturally us, are bad or wrong, instead of actually being shown how to work with them. Um, which to me, you know, when you pan out and look at it, it's like, okay, no wonder why the planet has looked the way that it has, right? Because
Yeah.
it's like everything was inverted, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Two people making love is the greatest act of rebellion, and of course he's speaking in terms of against that which has created a distorted reality.
Hmm. Yes, very good. I feel like that's makes total sense to me. Like when we're talking about the self love and getting into love for ourselves and for others, it's like that really is, I don't know, like as I just feel into it energetically, it's like that does rewrite things in and of itself. You know, each one of us that's doing that or learning how to do that for ourselves. Um, yeah, I like it. I'm processing a lot from this conversation.
Well, yeah. This is why I love this job, because
Mhm.
it's like it creates new thoughts, and
Yes.
but yeah, God, and I just lost it, and you lose them too. You lose some thoughts too.
Yeah,
But yeah, the
I
whole
hear
thing
you.
about the probably not something pre 2012 that was rewarding us too much, but I think it is now. That's how
Yeah,
I feel about it, and not because of
definitely.
just one of us. I mean, obviously,
Right.
there's a whole
Yep,
group of people.
for sure. I think that's like why I've kind of been guided to focus on relationships. Um, it's not all I do, but it's something we can all relate to, you know? It's Um, and like you said, that want for love, to experience love, to share love, in, partnerships, but just to see and experience more of it within all of our relationships on the planet. Like it's so much more of our true nature. And so it's an interesting experience we've set up for ourselves here.
No kidding. Well, all right. So you're revamping Harmonious Hearts. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
yep, I
Is it
am.
still your YouTube Harmonious Hearts? So you
Yeah, that's it. I actually only have one now. I'm just condensing it into one. And,
okay. Very
it's
cool.
all been part of my transition. But, yep.
Right
So
on.
just rolling with what feels right. And
Well, man, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Yeah.
nice.
Well, thanks, Danielle.
Thank you. I
Appreciate it.
appreciate you.
And we'll be back. All right. Take care, everybody. Peace out.
Awesome. Take care.
Bye bye. It's nice to see, well, I guess the way I see you and some that write like you've been writing or talking is that you're actually looking at the masculine in yourself, and you're not seeing it as some external thing that you want to see happen, or when it happens then you have the validation and the guidance and direction. You're actually taking it into yourself. It's not, has nothing to do with anybody else, which is very powerful to me. But thank you for coming on, and thank you for reaching out to me and giving me that message today. um, and yeah, I'm just grateful that you're here. It's good to see you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here too. That part that you just said has definitely been what the last couple of years has been for me. Like a lot of the masculines around me in my life, even if they weren't specifically in my life, I was really looking at what they were experiencing and what that was mirroring to me.
Right.
And that's been exceedingly powerful. And what I've realized is that, like what you said, like, yes, the feminines were working the spiral, but we could not have done that without the masculines holding their space
Yeah.
for us to do that. And so, how I've interpreted and understood it is as the masculines were doing what they were guided to do, as long as I wasn't projecting my stuff onto them and I was just using it as that mirror to me,
Right.
I could honor their process the same way I was learning to honor mine. And, whatever they choose from there is what they choose. But for me, um, it's been a huge part of my growth and showing up for myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy too because men are stepping up, and it's the feminine in them that's stepping up, even though they've been out there. It's a different part of him, and
Right.
it takes a different part of his heart. You know, his courage.
Right. It's so fascinating because that's all always been parts of who we were, but in the exploration we were on, in the limitations that were set up by the society dynamics, we weren't really exploring those other parts of ourself,
Mm-mm.
you know, just because of the dynamics that was set in front of us.
Right.
But yeah, so it's interesting to be able to explore this. It excites me in the sense of being able to show up for myself in that way, because being able to show up for myself all the way, now I can actually show up in my relationships in a whole different way. So that will be interesting to see how that unfolds. um,
Yeah.
so
Well,
we're,
I don't know.
yeah,
So, yeah, I just feel like sometimes we just need to take a breath and say, you know what, this is happening. Everybody,
right.
chill. You know. But
Yep. That's actually why I use the cards on my channel. There's been so much information that I've been over the last couple of years that I've been learning. It's like sometimes where do I even start? So I just use the cards as a prompt to know which thing to share.
mm-hmm.
Um, and it just helps. But that's like you said earlier that I'm putting out a lot right now. It's like there's so much to share. I just need that outlet.
Yeah. But like,
Yeah.
how do you explain everything, you know, that's happening between these two gender energies within us?
Well, I guess what I've been feeling of recent, what I was actually even thinking about before we got on here is that I think there have been parts of the masculine that the masculines haven't even had a chance to explore within themselves because they haven't had the space to actually think about, like what you said, like just getting to know yourself. Like, what is it that I actually want? Because there's been so much time and effort and energy around, okay, I have to provide, I have to protect, I have to do these certain roles, and there's these certain expectations on me as a man, and I've been taught not to deal with my emotions because that's weakness. So really my question is, when have the masculines actually ever, when do they really get time to know exactly what it is that they want, really and truly? And I can relate to that within myself, even as a woman, because that's what I've been doing the last couple of years, was realizing that my kind of provider, protector energy was always helping everyone else. And I didn't even know what I really wanted on some levels. I was kind of just going with what was all around me. And so I think, yes, within the masculine parts of ourself, whether you're masculine or feminine, the question would be, do you actually really know what you want? Have you ever really sat fully with yourself
Hmm.
to drop into that? Um, that's what I'm seeing with that side. And then I guess with more of the feminine side, like you said, the parts that we've been already exploring and that we do know those parts of ourselves, it's like that's the part that's really kind of stepping up into more of the creative projects and kind of standing in that love and the unconditional love, and like what are we really going to build in as we move forward. And I probably identify with it that way because I am a female,
Hmm.
uh, very aware of the dance that I have with both parts of those within myself on a daily basis.
Mm. That's highly commendable. I don't go through my life thinking about my feminine and my masculine, but that's thought provoking.
Well, I'll say this. I think it's just been part of what I was supposed to do to understand it, not necessarily what everybody else has to do.
Right.
It, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. No, that makes total sense, and I agree with you. A man does not get unconditional love because he has to do certain things in order to, right? So now, I'm not saying that's true. What I'm trying to just show is that they both ultimately ended up in the same place, which was I
Mhm.
don't know who I am because I don't have time to figure it out because I've been on this program. Well, guess what? We all have been. We've all been. So if we end up at the same place, what does that really mean? That's got nothing to do with female or male. It has to do with a human being coming into the knowing of I am soul. Period. Right?
Yep,
So
I
I guess.
agree. I think that's the biggest part that I've realized through this couple years is what you just said, is that's been the huge mirror between the typical masculine and feminine, is that it's been the same exact dynamics, just from the opposite, but at the core of it, it is the same exact thing. And that's what I've been noticing and learning through my experience the last couple years. Um, Mostly for me, it really became really strong through having that soul connection back that happened around the same time I met you guys.
Mm,
That really brought it all up in my system. And I've had to work it the last 2.5 years, that initiation of really what all the stuff that came up for me. And this understanding of my own internal masculine and feminine was a result of that relationship and the mirror that it gave to me. So that's why I went so deep with it as far as internally, because that connection came to me in that way, like where it like was part of me, almost that like oneness. Even though he was a separate human being, the connection for me came through in that oneness energy. So it was like separate but not separate. And that really colored my experience and how I've navigated it the last couple of years. Um, I'm not like, even with the channel, it's like sometimes I just want to, like you said, I just want to be like, we're human. And I was kind of guided to just start with it as the masculine and feminine, but I'm not attached to it if it wants to evolve, because I think that it's important to give ourselves that space to just let it keep evolving. Um, and learning who we are as, like you said, as humans, as souls. And for me, this, that we're having this conversation and that we're at this point where we can do this, I'm excited about that, because
Yeah.
that means we are getting to know who we actually are as human beings. And then we can show up together and actually co-create within ourselves, but then together as communities, because now we know who we are, or we're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, because people are finding what moves them, their passions. I look at it as convergence, you know.
Yeah. I feel like the heart, maybe that's why that post I said, I think the heart is where the masculine and feminine meet,
Right, right.
within us. It's like that's part of who we are. And I don't know, that just hit. It just feels like that's the space where they meet. And maybe because of the emotional part being more accepted with feminines, they dropped into their heart a bit different. But I feel like as the masculines are able to find their own connection with their own heart and their own emotionality and what it means for them in their own way is what's important. I definitely used to try to share with masculines in my life how I dealt with emotions. And that doesn't work.
No,
And I get that now, and my heart was coming from the right
of
place,
course.
but it was in the understanding of realizing, like, no, that's the same way. I don't need them to fix things for me. I just want them to hold space. It's for me now to just hold space for them to figure it out for themselves, and just be there and show up as a caring, supportive woman in their life.
Yeah. Great point. It's a different language than we used to speak to each other.
Yeah.
See, and that's it's you feel like a little boy, which is not a bad thing, but
Yeah.
that's what it feels like.
Right. In a weird way, I can relate to you, because this process about a year and a half ago, I mean, I obviously was comfortable talking about things, but during when I was going through a really hard time, I found myself at my dad's house in front of my dad and my uncle. And like I said, I considered myself someone who was very open and talked about things, but like I started to open up to them about things in a vulnerable way that I never had, even with my own dad. And it was like, I think, healing for them, but also very healing for me, because I realized I was like, I don't know, like, I guess maybe my masculine part was having that type of relationship with them. And it was, I don't know, I don't quite know how to explain it. I just know that it was a big shift for me, and like that I never even realized I wasn't. It was kind of like I was always with the guys, so I was kind of one of the guys, and I didn't open up that part of me. And that day when I did, it changed the dynamic, and it opened up a part of me. Um, and I think they've talked to me about different things after that. So it was like it just opened up, like you said, that camaraderie even between like men and women, when I let myself be vulnerable with them in a different way.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to this. We're finding out the more we talk about things, the better we are. That
Hmm.
we don't have to go to rehab. We don't have to go on some course because there's code in what you're telling me, and vice
Hmm.
versa, hopefully, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's another thing, is like I found as I've healed or worked through my wounds or triggers as they come up within myself, then I can hold that space with somebody without the judgment. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the biggest thing, right? Like I've judged in the past. I'm sure I'll do it again. I won't sit in it. I'll move through it, because we're human. And when things come up, I'm letting those triggers come up so I can move through them, because I think that's part of the unraveling that we're doing. Um, but mostly that's the biggest thing, is like when I realize that it comes up and it's not really about anybody else. It's like, what is it triggering in me? And then how can I move through that so I can show up? Because just like what you said, it's filling some type of a void for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But if people don't feel safe to be able to talk about it, how are they ever supposed to move through it and figure it out for themselves? Sometimes just having another human being that can listen to you without judging you, and that's it. That in and of itself is life changing.
Yes, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took me a while, but I figured that out.
Yeah.
That, you know what you're saying, it there was a point in time where I would talk and then like it would be quiet on the other end, and that would be confusing to me, you know, and I think that that's what happens to a lot of women. But now I understand it different, that in my understanding and my experience now is men just process things differently. And it doesn't necessarily mean they haven't heard what you said. And just sometimes keeping it simple,
Yeah.
like, and just sharing like the core of it. Like that's where I like learning to process a lot for myself. It doesn't mean I'm not going to share, but if I can process a majority of it for myself and then come and talk to the other person when I get kind of a better understanding, it's not so overwhelming. Because I think that as you say that, sometimes in my own experience, I think at the time, my part, I was taking on a lot of trying to understand it and then express it. But I was taking on double the job in a way. So it didn't even give the space um, for the conversation to open up. And that is something that I've learned big time now. It's like, just give it space and let it come natural.
Yeah. Now, if we move to the point where I'm not going to try to fix you anymore and you're not going to try to fix me anymore, then we land in that space that you're talking about, which is space. Which is
Hmm.
what? Let the heart speak. Let the heart land. Let the heart not be hindered or impeded by
Yeah.
the old programming. And it's a bit difficult, and we're all addicts.
Yeah. With what, like, that's what I find I like about it the most is, say I share something and then you have time to sit with it, you have space to sit with it. You might get a whole different interpretation or information out of what I said that I would have never even known myself. But having that space for you to digest it and take what it means for you, I think in a sense that's how we can co-create, or how we create the new ways of being, in that it doesn't have to be one single way, and it's not about it being my way. I'm more of, in a way, like, if I'm sharing love through what I'm sharing, then I have no attachment to how that translates for you. It's really just coming from a space of love. So my goal is really for it to just support you,
Mm,
troll it, or how you perceive it or receive it, but just how you take that and morph it into whatever works for you.
yeah. Um, what she said. but
Did that
but
make
no,
sense?
but there's a okay. So the anger and the sadness and the envy and the bullshit. Why don't we talk about the bliss and the joy and the good times? You know what I mean? We can sit with those emotions too. It's not against the fucking law. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's actually the what I did this morning. I said just that in my reading. I was like, if you're as you're unraveling out of those, what do you want to replace it with? You know, it's, you don't have to know what it looks like, but how do you want it to feel? You know, it's that process of being that creator of the next parts, the next foundation for yourself. Because right, like, we were dropped into a lot of madness and we've been navigating through it and learning our ways, and as each of us do, it's like that's how we build the new, I think, I believe, one step at a time.
Even though we've been put in this place, the rule doesn't change. The universe doesn't do it for you, and nobody will. So
Right.
we're still on our own, but we have each other, which is cool.
Right. Yep. Yes, sir. I'm definitely grateful for the journey. I'm grateful to be at least in this pocket now. It was rough there for a little while,
But it like it
when was a little while?
goes, huh?
When was a little while? That wasn't too long ago, was it?
Oh, it's the last couple of years. Yeah. I mean, it's there, right?
Yeah,
But we're still moving through it. But I guess the fact that I can be here and talk to you about this stuff now, I know I'm more integrated with it.
yeah,
Still something that's integrating daily, but enough to where I can speak about it. So that feels good.
yeah,
Right. And like you said earlier, like we were learning how to do it on our own, but now like coming back out into the world, the main thing that I'm learning with myself is like, yes, I have this knowledge and I'm going to go and be around people and in situations. And that's where I can put my knowledge to the test.
yeah,
For starters, but then two, it actually lets us embody it so it can become something that's sustainable in the physical world. And that's, I mean, that's my goal is how much can I embody this and share it with other people in my connections, in my relationships, and actually live what I've been intellectually knowing.
yeah, yeah. And that's what we're doing. And
Right.
this is like,
So that's why we have to be gentle with ourselves around that. We're doing something that hasn't been done.
that's right. Being aware of getting offended, even if it's just a little bit, where you want to make like a sarcastic joke, because I mean, there's no middle ground, and it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good either. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't. It doesn't make your life perfect. It's just the way it is.
Yep. One of that kind of reminded me of like for me, it was speaking of like intimacy, when I was going through this process, something that was difficult for me for a while was how can I unconditionally love someone and set boundaries at the same time? I didn't know how to do that. Or, it was like a foreign pocket to me. Like, how do I love someone and set those boundaries? But in time, what I've realized is, like you said, that unconditional love, that that means I'm half of that equation. So, like, if something's offending me and it's just a trigger and I'm not really hurt, how can I move through that? But is someone actually legitimately disrespecting me or hurting me? How can I set a healthy boundary around that and still love them? I might have to do it from over here,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how they respond to my boundary. But it doesn't take away the love that I have for them. It's just I also have to love myself in the process. And for me, that's been the game changer for me, um, in being able to like protect and care for myself, but still hold love for
Mm-hmm.
other people at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. That's one of those deep codes that we're writing, right?
Mm.
I mean,
That has been a deep pocket I've been working in for sure.
well, and it's just like with the boundary thing. I mean, I realize the boundaries are necessary so we can find out who the hell we are. Because with all that static, you can't. I guess maybe part of what we're doing is these things come up so they can be seen and respected and honored and released in our own crazy human way.
You're right, because even the people who say have triggered me to know and learn how to set those healthy boundaries, at the core of it, they were helping me learn that part of myself.
Yeah,
And what I'm finding is, like you said, once I learn how to figure out that boundary within myself, no other people are treating me that way
yeah,
because I don't need that anymore.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So it really, that's when I say to people, like, everything's an opportunity, it's a gift. It truly is. And if we can, not always easy what I'm saying, but if we can drop into that part of it, it's life changing.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have a huge potential here, and
Mhm.
very quickly too. I think.
Right. Well, and to speak with what you're saying right there, I think given the human parts of us, the so called mundane is some of the most intense stuff. In my opinion, actually embodying it in the human, in the collective, and what we're surrounded by is, I don't know.
a long time ago I was shown like our higher selves or our other aspects need us just as much as we need them because they're
Absolutely.
getting a whole different experience
That's
through
right.
us. I think that's why the other day in my video it's like, no, we're some of the bravest souls that are here, you
That's
know?
right.
Hmm.
It's okay. It's not being a human is not a dirty thing. And I think that's a great place to look because that's where we've all been hit.
Right. I actually spoke about that a bit too because it is I mean, why like bring the best of both worlds together? You don't have to necessarily give up everything that you enjoy or connect with to go and bring in your spiritual parts. And I think maybe that's some of why there's been resistance to that part of it in both directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like thinking that we have to give up one part for the other, but why not do all that and be able to have access to all of those things? That's kind of the point to me. I think finding the blend of what works and accessing all of who you are instead of just small parts or pockets.
Yeah. We can do whatever we want to do. But I think this is where the rubber meets the road now. Really.
I think that the things that we're talking about is that foundation, like that self acceptance, that your connection with McDonald's and how you view it and bringing that into your body and what that means for you. That's the energy that it is for you. It's when people feel disconnected from why they're doing it or they feel wrong for doing it,
Mm-hmm.
what everything told them. That's like when it can shift the energy. But it's really like you said about that self acceptance or our experiences that we're choosing to open up to all of that
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just let it be what it is without that self judgment.
So what do you have? Do you have anything planned? I know you got the YouTube channel going, Harmonious Heart. Is that what it is?
Yeah, Harmonious Hearts. That's where I'm doing the majority of my stuff.
Mm.
Actually, interestingly, I've been doing some groups
Mm.
and I've been noticing this is kind of ironic, right? I was excited that I had a group and it was half masculine and half feminine.
Really?
But what I'm realizing is I think I'm actually going to move to one for each because what I'm finding is the feminines are pretty quiet and they're showing up and they want to like learn, and the masculines want to talk, which is awesome. And I'm excited to share that space. So
Wow. That's interesting.
yeah,
I'm.
it is. Hmm?
I mean,
Go ahead.
obviously. No. 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 I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, it's just that's what I'm thinking. That's what's kind of been coming to me. So that's rolling around, and if it's meant to materialize, that's what's rolling around in my head to have some platforms like that come
I'm just
out.
surprised you got a bunch of men in there. you know.
Like this is part of it though, is that I think like as I've been working on balancing my inner and wanting to be able to hold that space for masculines too, because I agree with you, men definitely need men big time.
Mm-hmm.
I have no doubt about that. But it kind of just came to me over the last few weeks that there's also value in men having a woman who can hold space with them as well. One that
Absolutely.
they don't have to provide for or protect or, worry about all of those things where they can just have kind of that peer safe space. So there's something bubbling there. I guess we'll see what happens with that.
Well,
But
that's interesting though. I mean, the whole idea that's one of our great uh, characteristics or gifts or skills is to adapt. That
mhm.
doesn't mean you concede and give up your power. It just means you adapt. And sometimes adapt is I'm not going to even run a men's group. I'm just going to focus on women, or vice versa, or both.
Mhm. Yep. Um, I that's why I kind of put the groups out there and just I didn't do it like, oh, I'm gonna do that. I was like, let's just see what happens.
Mm.
And a couple I started to see, I was like, oh, okay. And so, I'm gonna try one of each, and then see what happens and see if that supports what they're looking for. And I know what I'm capable of. I just let myself show up and support in that way. And trust whoever can benefit from connecting with me will. That's how I work.
Well, I think those things should be on broadcast. Those things should be broadcasted out there. I'm talking about, and we've done it a few times on here. I'm talking about where you have a group, and I know that's personal and things would have, but I'm just saying, it's one way or the other. How do we get that out there? Like that would be so powerful to have people actually just having a conversation as if the camera's not even on them, right? I mean, that would be gold, and I'm sure it'll happen. I'm sure it'll happen because I'll call you and convince you to do it. No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Let's try it. What can it hurt?
Well, I really appreciate you, Danielle. I would encourage people to.
Yeah,
I would encourage people to get over there and check that content out.
I appreciate that.
In fact, I've downloaded some of yours.
That's cool.
It's good stuff. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right.
All right.
Appreciate
Thank
you.
you so much.
I
You
appreciate
take.
you. Love you. Thank you for everything you're doing, and I'll see you again soon. You
All
take
right.
care. Okay.
Thanks. Oh, that's, yeah, really interesting. I'm like literally living a block from where I grew up with one of my childhood friends. So I've this whole last year has been really about going all the way back.
That's trippy. That's
Mhm.
trippy. Really is. Yeah. And I guess you were in Florida. Were you in Florida when we were in Florida?
No, last time I talked to you, I was in Florida though.
Yeah. Yeah. And this crisscrossing, the land is there's something to that.
Yeah,
There's something to that.
yeah, there's definitely some major spots. That's like I was when I was in Florida, I was like, all right, I'm totally free. Where am I going? And they're like, you're going back home.
Right on.
I
Right
was
on.
like, all right.
So, Kyle, we've known each other what a couple of years now,
Yep.
and you've been very open, which I think is really beneficial to people. Not that everybody needs to go do it, and not that I'm judging anyone that doesn't, but
Mhm.
you share in a way that most people or that hasn't been the norm. So
Mm.
you're not afraid, and there's something about that code and that frequency that lights people up, and then they want to emulate it. They want to do it too. So big
Well,
props. How long you been back in
I came
Syracuse?
back. I came back in March. Actually, I got back on the equinox. Yeah.
Okay. So what's happening and whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I had so many things that I thought I was going to talk to you about, and then like everything changes
Mm.
all the time. So I'm just showing up. But it's funny when you said, that I'm so open with my story. And, just a few years ago, I was scared to even write a post on Facebook, even respond to somebody. So I definitely had to push through um, a lot to get there. But once I did, it's like so freeing to just be yourself and be vulnerable. Um, I can't even go back,
Right.
you know,
That's right.
but it's interesting how definitely people respond differently to that. Um, but,
Yeah,
well,
you
if
can't go back, can you?
no, it,
Even if you want to.
some,
You can't.
some days there's like, I just want to go hide under the pillow, but, um,
It's kind of ironic with the you hear people with the whole we got to be a little careful because we got two strikes at YouTube and actually two at Facebook, two at YouTube.
mhm.
But don't hold back.
Well, that's funny. I met you right when all the first couple weeks of the shutdown. Um, and that's really when meeting you in Morgan, when I'm here thinking I'm coming out of my dark night of the soul. I was,
Mm,
I was just going in.
that's right. Yeah, I remember. No, you hit it hard though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you jumped on the rocket and just went for it. And yeah,
Yeah. I'm open. We can talk about it now.
yeah.
I definitely processed quite a bit.
You sound like you're Plattsburghian.
That's a few hours north of me, but
Oh, is it? Yeah.
I think so. I
Hmm.
haven't been there, but I'm Syracuse.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Whatever you want to talk about. We have
Yeah.
plenty of time.
Well, I don't know. I'll just roll with whatever comes. I guess when that happened last year, like I said, here I am thinking I'm like skyrocketing up into 5D land. And I literally went on this journey the past year and a half where I ended up diving into my entire past, like, but on the physical level, not just in like the work, the actual like sitting back and looking at the work. Like I lived 13 places in like 13 months. Um, it was people from my childhood. I even lived with my dad and my brother for a while, which I hadn't lived with my dad since I was 12. Um, and for a while, I was like, I kind of felt like I was like, where did I go? What am I doing? Like I kind of felt like I went all the way back. But I realized like I was going back to get all the parts of myself that I had left behind.
Yeah.
And it was all right here, so it was really intense. And actually, the last time I spoke to you, it was so funny. I realized how much I was still in it when I think you interviewed me and my picture wouldn't even show up. And I was like, oh, I'm still on the cocoon. Like, that's why.
Yeah, I do remember that, and I remember that show because we've done what? This is probably our fifth show, maybe
Yeah, 4 or 5, something like that.
fourth, five. Because I remember the energy of that show. I forgot you couldn't get we had to put a picture of you up. I remember, but it was kind of indicative of the energy that was happening. You were very different. You were
Hmm.
almost like tender, like you know what I mean? Like not tender, like, but I mean like tender, like you've been bruised up a little bit. Like,
Oh, you hit it on the head.
uh,
Yes, I was definitely, yeah, I wasn't even, I love the beach. The beach was 10 minutes away and I wasn't even going. Like, I just was definitely in this space where I was like, I had the like 49 days I was completely alone and I just purged. Like, I don't know, I know it was this life, but DNA, whatever, I just let it all. I couldn't
mm,
probably tell you most of it. I just knew that I had to let it come out of my cells.
mm,
Um, and I had the space and the time, but it was definitely not comfortable um, in those moments. Yep.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I know, like, when I was, when I said I was going to get on that show with you, I thought I was going to talk about all this stuff. And then I remember we were on there and I couldn't even access it. Like, my brain was like, psst, wiped.
I remember that was the energy at the time, which was what, probably what, maybe 6 months ago, 5 months ago.
Yeah, maybe
Some,
February or March. No, I'm with you. I was like, where was I? What happened? But yeah, I remember after that, like just going out and meditating and just connecting with the earth. And it was interesting for sure. All these times, it's like everything is changing so quickly. Um,
hmm
I guess, for me, I feel like this past year and a half, I've done the equivalent of the past 15 or 16 years of work since I started. Um, and yeah, like just going in with the zero pointing and um, it's like prior to this, I had myself in a bubble and I just wanted to live in that happy little bubble, which who doesn't? Um, so yeah, it's been interesting. Like, I think at the time, but prior to this past year and a half, like I thought I had dealt with a lot of things. I thought that I had looked at it and acknowledged it, but there was something so different about going back into my old neighborhood, into those old relationships, and having the actual little literal mirrors. And it's almost like I went back to the old timelines that I grew up in. And at first, I kept running, like I wanted to run. Um, and one of the biggest things that I can say over the past couple months that has shifted for me is that I'm still doing that work, but I'm no longer running. Um, I've done enough to where I'm aware of what's happening and just staying centered in myself and um, doing that inner work without having to run away from anybody or reject, but still like set those healthy boundaries. So that's been interesting because it's definitely opposite of what I had pictured for myself. Um, but it feels like, well, back in February, before I spoke to you, I had done like a little channeling and I was having this vision of being so centered in myself, where I had worked through so many of the triggers that it wouldn't matter where I was, who I was around, or what was happening in the world around me, that I would just be able to be present, um, and available. And I
Mm.
know a lot of us do that, right? A lot of us in your community, like we're watching what's happening in the world and we're holding space for the higher energies. Um, I didn't know I was going to be really like diving directly into it though. So that's been an interesting part of it. But I guess at the same time, I was available and it just feels like part of what my purpose is.
It's like threading the grid, or like maybe like you said, picking up pieces of yourself.
Another piece I've noticed, because it's been happening with me, but I've been seeing it with some of people that I'm connected with too, is like, even if it's not the same exact people, there's similar situations that are presenting, um,
Mm.
that seem to be about being able to, um, do it with what we know now, you know,
Hmm.
like from that new perspective. And to me, how I see that, it's like we're able to ground in everything that we've learned and actually put it into practice. So it's like if we're working on it in the ethers and in the energy field, and then we have it in our body, which is kind of like the blueprint, then we get to actually act it out in the world. And it creates that like new template.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's really interesting when I look at it as you're talking. There's been times I've seen it. It's like if I'm here right now in this present moment, and then I have back to the day I was born or conceived. I've worked on both, but it's like I'm sending as I'm going into those spaces. It's like bringing the light back to those spaces. Actually, that was one of the things that came up for me, was to actually, well, it's connected with Morgan's work, of working with the mother and the father, but um, like actually seeing the sperm and the egg that created me,
Mm.
then bringing it in connection with creation energy, like the pure creation energy, or even just the vibration we're in now, so that my body, this body right now, can experience have that connection all the way back, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And then it was with that, and then it went to like the day that I was born, and I was guided to like envision the golden light going into my nervous system and my brain from like the first day I was born, because I could feel how it didn't feel the same. I could
Yeah.
feel how disconnected it felt, and probably why I was freaking out. um,
Yeah.
like most
Exactly.
of us do, right? So like where am I now? So that's been really helpful. I've been seeing that a lot, like with everything that we've been going through and all the things we're processing, like the nervous system work. It's just like we're so like that was today when I told you literally spent the whole day getting enough into my body so we could talk, because I
Yeah.
felt so um I don't even, not even scattered is the word. It's almost like opened up and all the layers are open or something. That's what's coming to my mind.
Did you feel like there was some kind of shift on or about those dates?
Yes, definitely. And I did see your show the other morning, and thank you.
Mm.
It was beautiful. I felt
Yeah.
that in my heart a lot.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely, and then it feels like definitely that day. At one, well, yeah, I felt it that day. You could feel like a settling in. And then if it makes any sense, it feels like then everything shuffles up again.
Mm. Yeah.
It was new, but then we're still, I don't, at least for me, um, I definitely felt like that new point, and I love when we feel those.
Yeah.
And then if it's just our still adjusting, or like the world around us adjusting, like one of the weirdest things happened today. where I live, there's actually Onondaga Lake, and it's one of the most polluted lakes in the world. But they've been
Really?
cleaning it up for years. It's a sacred lake, but unfortunately wasn't taken care of well. But they've been cleaning it up, and it used to smell real bad, and for years it hasn't. And this morning I was called to go there as part of my grounding, and it was smelling this morning, and I was like, there's something weird going on. It just felt like is like that part of the earth cleansing at a deeper level too. I just was very aware of that. Um, so I don't know. I have to pay attention to things like that.
Yeah. This is really our natural state. So, it's kind of like when people say, they give us a little code at a time so we can adjust. Otherwise, it fry us. Well, can you imagine all these powers being turned on?
Well, it's funny because back, well, like I said, when I first started working with you and Morgan, like I was working in some of those energies a bit, and they all did come online like massively
Mm.
for a while. I want that all to come back. I mean, it's there, but not
Hmm.
at the level I was for a little bit. It was just like, wow. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
A taste.
I do know what you're talking about. And I'm like, okay, that's where we're headed.
Yeah.
It's like getting the suit ready.
Many, many people that are expanding, uh, by virtue of their focus being on themselves.
Right. Definitely. Well, it's interesting because, yeah, like as you clear all the programming or so much of it, right, and the distortion, and then it's like being around it. Um, it's hard to remember what that was like being in it. You know what I mean? But I've been kind of like I'm saying, weaving in and out of that. So just getting that perspective again is interesting. Like even people just having those Sunday night, I'm so miserable, I have to go to my job. Like I forgot what
Yeah.
that felt like.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like things like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, the whole um, looking at it, when I look at it, I don't watch it a lot either, but it feels fake to me. Like
Very much so.
it feels
Yeah.
like I'm watching like kind of a joke. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. I know I watch when Jason comes on with you, and I remember when he was saying, like, I think it was the 21st where he was saying, like, between then and November, things were going to be really
Yeah.
coming in. And I was like, it looks like everybody's higher self is coming more online. Or like,
Oh, you're talking about, I brought that up to this lady yesterday. She didn't pick up on it, but because she was a walk-in, she'd written a book on walk-ins. He was saying
yeah.
so what is there, 7.8 billion people on the earth, that 6
Mhm.
billion people are
Yeah.
going to have higher aspects walk in
Hmm.
between now and November.
Yeah.
Like, and you remember people said that at the end of the year, we would not recognize the world.
Yeah.
And that would do it.
It's going to
That
be
would,
interesting.
that would do it. Right.
Yeah, I definitely feel that energy of like you just wake up and you be present in the
Yeah.
moment and you have just show up, right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, I can't see what a month, I don't even know what tomorrow's
Mm.
gonna be like,
Mm-mm.
or
No.
3 hours, 4 hours from now. Um,
Mm-mm. It's just kind of weird, but it's cool.
yeah,
It's
I've
cool.
definitely seen that where you're talking about it just seems like with everything that's happened, it's just forced people, like if they weren't really looking at things, like to really have to go within, or like experiencing all the different things, and even just a quiet time when there was the shutdown, people started to actually like look at their life and realize like, hey, maybe this thing that I've been doing without thinking about it kind of sucks. You know what I mean? And like they started looking at like, what do I really want to do with my life, or how do I really want to feel?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting the impact. I look at, just my own life and how things have changed. Um, and I was decently aware, and you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But yeah, we all got catapulted into another space.
That's code, and people consciously and unconsciously pick up on it. The soul hears it, and it's expanding.
Yeah.
It really is.
a big part of like the past year, why I moved so many times is, or, things kept shifting. One, I think I just had more things to go work on, obviously. But a big part of it was within each one of those things, um, I had to tune in to see what felt right, because some part of me was still trying to create from what I knew before, right?
Mm,
What was my stability? What made me feel safe? Like, what actually got me to this point? Because I didn't grow up stable, right? I had only had that during my marriage. So it was going back out into that instability, but then finding it within myself has been the biggest lesson, right? Like, it's not about where I live or what I have, all of those things, right? Like, it's really being comfortable in myself, no matter where I am, who I'm with, what the surroundings are like, um, just knowing that I'm safe in myself. And that took me a little bit to really fully ground into. Um, and I'm getting much better at it.
right
Um,
on.
but yeah, so that part of it, as far as like if you think about it and the way the world is changing, I tried to buy a couple houses. I even had an apartment during this journey, and the guy below me was literally attacking me. Like,
What?
yeah, he, not me like physically,
Oh, I got you.
popping my tires, and like, I'm super quiet person, probably, like, I thought, I was like, oh, maybe it's the energy, but I found out I was like the fourth woman that it happened with. But it was just an interesting part. Like, I knew I was safe, like from my higher perspectives, but it was like interesting, like, why was this part of my journey, like, what, just observing it. But I realized, like, again, it was finding that comfort in myself. And yes, I got out of there, but it feels like as we're moving and we're not really sure where things are going to go, right? But that's the whole point. We're creating something completely new that we've never done before. We don't want to keep creating from our old
Mhm,
creations, which
mhm.
is what I had to drum into my own head. So I'm just present and available. And I have no idea where I'm going to end up, or if I'm going to end up anywhere, or just keep moving. Like, but I know enough now to just ease into it and follow my guidance wherever I'm supposed to go.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff now that I think is gonna serve us really quick in the evolution.
Yeah, that's interesting. You just said that, because when I was in such a good space at the beginning of this journey, like, my telepathy, my intuition was like spot on. But then as all of those mirrors started coming up and so much of the trauma rose, it was definitely, I can tell you for myself, I couldn't decipher, because I knew I was getting intuitive, but I also was aware that I was totally triggered too. And that gets kind of crazy.
Hmm. Hmm.
That gets interesting. But then you kind of see in those energies, right, when people haven't processed their trauma or zero pointed, why the world gets so chaotic.
Hmm. Gonna be whatever's gonna happen because I have no idea how it's gonna go.
Right. I just was saying that yesterday, that like, as I'm unraveling out of those old ways of being and cleaning up those old timelines, I'm like excited to see what happens and who comes along or who shows up. There's
Mm.
like a freshness and a newness, like when you just totally let go of those old attachments and get into a space of non-attachment and love and just being present with whoever shows up. Um, it's this part of the journey has really taught me that at a different level, and it that freedom, like, to be available, does feel exciting to me, because just to be able to be a part of the shift in that way. um it just, one of the things that was coming into my mind when you were speaking earlier, I've seen, when I see Morgan's post, I'm always like, oh my gosh, how are we like going through almost the same exact thing at the same?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, it's like she's in my head, but I know it's just part of that collective, right?
Mm.
Um, but one thing that I've noticed a lot is, you were saying something earlier, well, as we're like lifting out, it's like the way that things used to operate out of old types of contracts. That's been a huge thing for me. Like marriage contracts, like the old way things were written, housing contracts, whatever it is,
Hmm.
they're bound in that old energy. In If that makes sense, it's just like they almost the old contracts that the collective agreed to seem to hold people within that construct.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And this is an energy game. So what's that going to mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, at least how I look at it, because when I look at things from an energy standpoint, I feel like there has to always be a solution, right? And if we look at it, I'm still sorting this out in my own mind because the things I think I know changes constantly. But
Mm.
if there's something present on the planet, right, like an opportunity or whatever you want to call it is put in front of us, right? Like it's there. And as individuals, like maybe it comes to fruition if we need it or if we don't. I guess I look at it like I don't really need that lesson. So why would I have to go through that? Or if it does happen, do I have to actually experience any of the implications of that? Um,
Yeah.
that makes sense, right?
It's weird. Yeah, it makes sense.
Just goes back to those individual choices and experiences, right?
Where they just go, you know what? I'm not doing this. And you're like, why not? I just got a feeling. And so I think that's the
Yes.
technology that's being lit,
Hmm.
because it's being utilized more and more,
Yeah.
particularly by those who had access to it at a greater extent, which are the feminine.
Yeah. I'm with you. I definitely, I trust myself above all else, right? And that's what I always share with everyone else. Trust yourself, like tune
Yeah.
into that, or
Yeah.
develop that trust with yourself as much as you can, because that's your that's your most accurate indicator.
Have you noticed, as your appetite increase, decrease? Are there things you're not eating that you used to that, you know what I mean? Like everything's just going like wonky.
Yes, 1,000%. I was
Okay.
like pretty good, this whole year threw me completely off. It was like everything I was doing that was working for me, like I forgot what everything was. It's like I
Mm,
had to hit the reset button, so to speak. And
mm.
I found that I'm really just trying to pay attention in the moment, what feels in alignment with my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. Um, and it's definitely interesting. But yeah, it seems like it changes constantly.
Yeah.
But I was craving juice today.
What I'm picking up from people and myself is over the last really since June, just, and it's only gotten faster, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy.
If you think about it, the juicing, like it's just direct nutrients right to the system. You don't
Yeah.
really work that much. It just, on that level. And we're seems like we're needing those resources so much
Yeah.
faster. I was
And
actually like last week, it's almost like our gas tank quadrupled.
yeah.
Yep. Like the need for the energy, like, or the shift of the energy. I don't quite know how to put it, but that's what they showed me. It was like,
Yeah. What? Say that again. Say that again. Because I think I go ahead. Say that again.
I said, our gas tank, the size of our gas tank quadrupled.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
able to carry so much more energy, but then like we're needing to fill up faster in different ways.
Yeah. Like, okay. So did you just get this recently?
Like last week. Yeah.
Okay. And I've seen people recently, and they're eating a lot or they're not eating nothing, sleeping a lot or they're not sleeping at all. It's like
Yeah.
biologically, physically, it doesn't make any sense. We should be dropping dead, you know?
I go through bouts of all of what you just said.
Mm.
And one of the things, actually, thankfully, we're in the time of the year where we actually have sun here in Syracuse, but that really fills my tank,
Yeah.
spending some time in the sun. Hence why I was in Florida, because there's about a good 7 months around these parts, we don't get much sun, which is that's rough on me.
Are you
But
going to hit the road again? Or do you know?
I am definitely open to that.
Are you feeling it?
It actually started to come in a couple weeks ago that I might be where some sun is come winter. I don't
Mm.
have a specific plan yet, but definitely see that potential.
If it's, jumping in the bus or
Yep.
and just going somewhere. I don't know.
I got that actually, I think a week ago or so, I did a
Mm.
post about that. I was like, I feel reshuffling, I'm being moved. But it was also the same thing. Like at first it was like, am I getting back in my car and moving? Or is it just the whole energetics, the timelines moving? But it was definitely, I'm with you. I can feel that coming as well, but not
Mm.
quite sure what it is. But that's I think what you're speaking about is what is happening more and more. We're not getting the exact what's going to happen. Um, and I used to love knowing ahead of time, but it's
Mm.
like the more open we are, the more possibilities present, the
Yeah.
more, also because the whole world is shifting and our movement is based on all of the other movements since we're available.
It's mysterious, right? It just flows like that, right? It's
Yep.
just,
Yeah.
it has to be allowed to run free.
Right, but the two like, that's it, I was always very action oriented, like, you give me something and I would go and do
Mm.
whatever I could to make it happen.
Hmm.
That was pretty exhausting.
Hmm.
So, I love doing things this way because, yes, I take action when it's time, right? So it is that balance of the feminine and the masculine, but just letting it work in the ethers. It's like,
Mm.
you see all these potentials floating around, and as we move forward, certain ones come and present themselves, and then we're off.
Do you are you like connecting like organically in terms of like co-creation and collaboration?
Yeah,
Mm.
I as far as like with other people,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay, I'm buck naked, I'm laid out on the table, everybody can see all my stuff, and that's power, but it is somehow some weird way, it
yeah,
really is.
yes, no, I'm with you. I haven't. Um, it feels so much easier. It's like you're right. In some ways, it's like getting to that point of being able to be vulnerable. That was intense, right? But then once you get there, you're like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
so much easier than anything else. All I have to do is show up and be me. And
Hmm.
like, it is what it is. Like, people who vibe with it, and whoever doesn't, doesn't. And
Hmm.
at the end of it, like, or at the end of that moment, it doesn't really matter. You just have to,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. And
but
you see, and we've had this synergy, and I know I've been there.
for me, sometimes, I guess dimensionally was how I taught myself to think of it at the time or learn it when I was first getting into this work about, you know, the way that I do it now, like first learning about that, like just seeing the different layers, like 3D, 4D, 5D kind of. Um, yeah. And now it's like you're saying, like just these different aspects of ourself and our abilities. Um, it seems like what maybe used to happen like once every couple months can happen like multiple times a day now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Everything is so much faster. It's like there's the awe factor, but then at the same time, like you just got to keep it moving. So yeah, like we're just absorbing so much, just being open and yeah, the past lives, the
Mm-hmm.
just our abilities, right? Like one of the things that I've been seeing is, how a lot of times it was like you're clearing out old energy, so the new can come in kind of thing. It's
Hmm.
been like old energy falling away so like the soul can shine, like come
Yeah,
out. I've been
yeah,
seeing that a lot more.
yeah,
Um, in that sense, it's like, yes, so like uncovering the diamond, right? Like it's all
yeah,
in here. We're just
yeah. Like cleaning up,
mhm.
like less dirty. Have you had any? Do you deal with any sacred geometry stuff like that?
There are times that it comes in. I
Mm,
feel like that I probably do get downloads similar to Morgan, where they
mm,
just come and um, I don't necessarily know they are, and then they show up.
mm.
So yes, I actually years ago, like with the experience of the pyramid coming down and then the triangle coming up from the earth and
Yeah,
together. Um,
yeah.
yeah. Um, Recently, sometimes like they just come in and start working, and I have to draw them, but they're like even just moving, so they're not even those like three-dimensional types of symbols or energy that it's a little bit harder to draw sometimes.
Yeah, that's what she's like. She'll draw it for me.
Yeah, no, she does. Her drawings are
Right.
awesome.
But even then, like I mean, like we'll be talking like this and she'll just have the notebook out and draw it. But yeah, it's not like you can put it on a piece of paper.
Yeah,
You can't. It's almost like a multi-dimensional, three-dimensional, like three-dimensional, multi-dimensional, like three-dimensional to the power of nine or something, like or the
right,
power of 12 or something. Yeah.
right. Well, that's where it kind of makes sense, right? That it unlocks within us, and then just like
Mm,
speaking or sharing space, you kind of get to exchange it in that way because there really aren't words or images to really capture what's really happening.
yeah, true that.
Mhm. But that
So
emotion.
yeah, wow, that was a quick hour and a half. I didn't mean to keep you. I didn't mean to keep you so long.
Oh, it's all good. I appreciate
So
your conversation.
yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. Really was. So you don't know where you're going. You don't know who you are, and that's exactly where we're supposed to be, right?
Really good with it.
Do you have any identities that left to die off?
Oh, I'm sure I can feel that.
Mhm.
I think that was part of what was happening this morning before I got on here.
Mhm. Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Cool. It's good seeing you, and I'll uh, I'll see if I can put together a short list of some of the people I know up there. Bruce and my friend Nora, who her and her sister run that spiritual center. I think it's in Syracuse.
See, well,
Uh,
I know a lot of people in this
uh,
stuff in Syracuse, but hey, you never know.
well, she might not be. She might be nearer to Buffalo. I don't remember. In
Yeah,
fact, if she was in Syracuse, you probably would have run into her already because it's been there for a long, long time.
yeah,
I think her and her sister, I think her husband, they're all ordained. They're very, very much into what we're all into and have been for a long time. Very cool people. Very
yeah.
cool people.
I would love to connect.
So yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing space with us, and it's good to see you again. And
Thank you.
wherever you end up going, be it you know Timbuktu or Venus or Florida again, whatever. I wish
Girl,
you the best. Stay in touch.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Take care. Peace out. We'll be back in a couple, 2, 3 hours with another interesting show. All right.